Alright, so for today I prepared for you a couple of C++ beginner exercises. So the first exercise basically says we are given two numbers and we have to print their sum on the screen. So we're going to write the C++ program from start to finish. So we're going to use the basic C++ structure for writing programs. So that is, we first have to include the IOStream library, and from that library you want to use the standard version. And then we want to write our literal program in the main function. So we say int main. Alright, so this is the very basic C++ structure. So we're going to write everything we need inside these two accolades and return 0. So inside the main function. Alright, so the exercise basically says we have two numbers, and as we can see from the examples, we have integer type numbers. So we don't have to deal with float type numbers or bool or double. So we want to declare two variables in which we're going to store these two values and afterwards work with them. So we can say we want to have two variables, so let's say a and b. Alright, these two variables will be of type int, because they both will have numbers as their values. And at last, a semicolon, because every instruction ends with a semicolon. Alright, now we want to take the first value from the screen and put it in a. So we want to say console input a. So what this does is basically saying take my first value and put it inside the variable a. We do the same thing for the second value, so we say cin b. Alright, so far we have the first value, which is 2, in a, and the second value, which is 3, in b. Now we want to print their sum, so we want to do a plus b. Alright, as I said before, we want to print this. So we say cout, which stands for console output, and its operator, a plus b. And at last, the semicolon. Of course, you could have declared a third variable in which you could have stored this value and then print that variable. So let's first compile, see if the program is correctly written, and check if we have any errors. And as we can see, we have no errors, everything is correct. And now we run this program, and let's give the first example. So the first number will be 2. The second number will be 3. The sum of 2 and 3 will be 5. Now for the last example, we actually have a special case. We can see that a is a negative number and b is a positive number, so their sum will actually also be their difference. So if we say minus 16, and I mind you, these numbers can also be separated by enter key. So the first number will be minus 16, the second number will be 20. Now you can see that their sum will be 4. Alright, that is all for this exercise. Now if we move on to the second exercise, we see that we also have two given numbers, this time a and b, both capital letters. We have to replace the last two digits of a with the last two digits of b. Alright, now to write this program, I'm just going to delete everything related to the first problem, and we're just going to keep the basic structure of a C++ program. Let's analyze this problem. So we have two numbers. The first one will be 1242. The second number will be 255. The last two digits of the first number will be 42, and the last two digits of the second number will be 55. And all we want to do is replace these two digits with the last two digits. So we'll have 1255. And you can see that this is the same result. The same applies for the next two examples. So we need two variables to store these two numbers. So we'll say int, alright, for numbers, capital A and capital B. Alright, now we want to take the values from the screen and store them in these two variables. So we say cin greater greater A and then cin greater greater B. You could have also done this shortcut. So in just one line we read two variables. I'm just going to use this example. Alright, now we have these two numbers. What do we want to do? We essentially want to assign to A a new value. Well, how do we calculate that value? Well, the first step is actually removing the last two digits of the former a. So the new value of a will be the former value of a without the last two digits. So that will be /100. Now, what do we want to do? We want to concatenate the last two digits of b. But how do we get the last two digits of b and concatenate them into a? So the last two digits of b will actually be b percentage 100. So the percentage symbol is actually opposite to the slash symbol. the slash removes the last two digits, percentage just keeps the last two digits. So far we said a is actually equal former value of a, which was 1242, without the last two digits, so that will be 12. And we have the last two digits of b, which will be 55. Now how do we actually find the relation in which we can concatenate them? So far we don't know of any operator that actually does that for us. But we can use a trick. From the restrictions, we know that a and b are guaranteed to have at least two digits. And as far as we are concerned, we're only going to work with their last two digits. So we can actually use this and we can say multiply this value with 100. So what this will do is actually make 12 to be 1200. And at last we just add 55 to 1200 and we actually get our result, which is 1255. Alright, so the first step is actually multiply this value by 100. So we just say star 100. I remind you, star is the symbol for multiplication. And at last we just want to add the last two digits of b. No matter how many digits b will have, we'll always just take the last two. We don't care about the rest. And no matter how many digits a has, we will always remove just the last two digits. So as far as we're concerned, this is actually true. Now at last we have to put a semicolon because every instruction ends with a semicolon. And in order to not have any errors, we're just going to comment this. Alright, now we have in a our result. We want to print a. So we'll do cout a. Alright, let's compile and run. And for the sake of this example or this demonstration, I'm going to use the first example and I'm just going to separate the two numbers by using the enter key. Alright, so we typed the first two numbers and we can see that it has printed the right result. Now this program will not actually work if a or b are negative numbers that have more than just two digits. Why is that? Well, let's try this. Let's say we have a as being 123 and b as being, let's say, just 20. You can see it actually didn't work. Why is that? Well, let's analyze this program. What does this program do? Alright, so we have taken the first two values on the screen. We put them in a and b. Now we said that the new a will be the former a, which is minus 123, divided by 100. So this will actually just remove the digits 23 and will leave us with minus 1. Now this minus 1 will multiply it by 100. So we'll have minus 100. And we just add the last two digits of b. So that will be actually 20. So we'll have minus 100 plus 20. And that will give us the result of minus 80. Now when we have these types of exceptions, it is much better if we take them by case. If we verify that at least one of these two numbers is a negative number that has more than just two digits. Now we'll learn how to deal with these special cases when we'll learn about the if condition statement. But until then, let's move on to the next exercise. So the next exercise basically tells us we have two numbers and we have to calculate and print on separate lines their sum, difference, product, division and modulo. So we can see that we will cover all the operators from my operator video. So we can see that we have two numbers, in this case 15 and 7, and we don't just print numbers, we also print messages. So we say their sum is, and then their respective sum, their difference is, and their difference, and so on. So let's take this problem from start to finish. So we have two numbers. So again, we have a and b, our two variables. We declare them by using the int data type and semicolon to end this instruction. Now we want to calculate their sum, so we want to print a plus b. Alright, so we say cout a plus b. But before we actually print a plus b, we want to also print a message. Now, how do we do that? I don't know if you remember, but we used to print messages when we highlight them in double quotes. So whatever is in between double quotes will be just a message. So in this case, we say their sum is colon and a space. Now, so far we have printed their sum is and then their respective sum. we're not done. We want to also print an end of the line, because if we don't print an end line, the next thing that we'll print will actually be concatenated to a plus b. So we just say end line. We can actually separate multiple messages by using the cout operator, which is less than less than. Alright, for the next message we'll do cout, and this time their difference is colon and space. I just noticed that I forgot to read the first two variables, so we say cn, a and b. Alright, now after their difference we want to print new line or an end line. We can use both, they're actually equivalent. For the sake of this demonstration, I'm actually going to use this time \n, which stands for new line, and the semicolon at last. Now the next message will be their product is colon and space, we end the quotes, and a star b, which is just saying a times b. Now we can also print new line or end line, but here I want to highlight something. \n is actually considered a character, and if you remember, we can actually print characters by highlighting them in single quotes. So we can say quotes \n. Alright, here's one important thing. We can print characters inside double quotes, so it will be considered as just a message with a single character, but we cannot print messages inside single quotes, because single quotes are reserved just for characters. This is a convention, and most of you will probably wonder, well, I can literally see that \n represents two characters. Well, in the ASCII code, they are considered just one character. Alright, semicolon at last. And now for our last operation, we will simply say cout their division is, and then what was the division to the nearest integer? That was a/b. And now end line, because as I said, I want to alternate between these two methods. The last thing we have to do is the modulo. So cout their modulo is colon space, and we end the quotes, and the modulo symbol was the percentage. So modulo is the remainder of the division, so a%b. And here we actually don't have to print another end line, because as you can see we don't have anything coming after the last message, but for the sake of this demonstration we can do that. So let's say end line and semicolon at last. Alright, let's compile and run, and let's see if this program actually works. Again, you can separate these values either by space or by using the enter key. Alright, so we see that we have no errors. Let's say 15 and 7, the first example, and you can see their sum is 22, their difference is 8, their product is 105, their division is 2. Actually, their division is actually 2 point something, but as I said, division using the slash symbol actually rounds that result to the nearest smaller integer, and the remainder of their sum is actually 1. Alright, let's move on to the next exercise. So we have three numbers a, b and c. We have to print them in inverse order. So as you can see from the example, they're being given in a specific order. For this example, we have them in ascending order. We just have to print them in descending order. Alright, so again, I'm just going to delete everything that isn't from the basic structure. And what do we have? So we have three numbers, so int a, b and c. Again, you can actually declare these three variables on separate lines. Alright, so we have these three variables. We want to read the values for these three symbols, so we will read first a, then b, then c. Alright, so we have the three values. Now everything we want to do is just cout them in inverse order. So we know a will be the first number to be read, so we'll leave it to being the last printed. C will be the last read, but we will be the first printed, so we will just say cout c, then b, then a. In between c and b, we want to print a message. What will be that message? The message will actually be just one space. In between b and a, we actually want to do the same thing. Space is actually also a character, and as I said before, we can print characters by using single quotes. So we just do space inside single quotes, and this will be a message, this will be a character. They both will have the same effect because they both will be printed as just being spaces. So let's compile and run. Let's give the first example, and you can see it actually worked. This space right here is a message, this space right here is a quote. Alright, and now for our last exercise, we are given a letter in the alphabet, and we have to print the next 3 letters that come after that letter in the alphabet. So let's say we have A. The next 3 letters that come in the alphabet after A will be B, C, and D. Now we have restrictions. It is said that the letter can be both lowercase and uppercase, and it is guaranteed that the letter will be at most W. Alright, so in this exercise we're not going to deal with numbers anymore. We can see that we have a letter. Now what data type actually helps us memorize letters? That is the char data type, which stands for character. Alright, now let's say we want to declare a variable that will store a character as its value. Let's call it just A, for example, or actually let's give it a more complex name. So let's say character actually. Alright, so this variable called character, we actually want to take an input and store it in this variable. So we're just going to say cn and the variable name. Alright, so what do we want to do now? We actually just want to print, so cout, the next 3 letters from the alphabets. So as you can remember from the ASCII code that I showed you in one of the videos, we know that every character has a code associated to them. So I'm not sure, but I think capital A has the code, let's say 65. Now B will actually have the same code as A, but only added by 1. So you can see that every adjacent letter in the alphabet has a code associated with them that comes in ascending order. So A will be 65, B will be 66, C will actually be 67, and so on and so forth. So what we want to print is actually our character. So let's say for the first example we get the character A, want to print A plus 1 and then plus 2 and then plus 3. But we have to generalize this because we will not always get A. So we just say the whatever character is being memorized in our variable plus 1 and then plus 2 and then plus 3. So we just say character plus 1, and then we separate this by using a space, and then character plus 2, and again we separate this by using a space, and then character plus 3. So we give the first example, and you can see here we have actually a problem. What is that problem? We don't have letters, we have codes actually, we have numbers. Well, apparently I was right. A had the code 65, B will have the code 66, C 67, D 68. Alright, but we don't care about the codes. We care about the letters. So let's say we have a number and we want to convert it into a character. Well, how do we do that? Well, we just specify the data type name that we want to convert to. So that will be char. And whatever we want to convert into char, we just highlight it inside parentheses. So character plus 1 will actually just return an integer, and this integer we'll have to convert it into char. The same thing works with int. Whatever we want to convert into int, we just put it inside parentheses. The same goes for float and for the rest of the data types that I've shown you in the data types video. Alright, so again we do char and we highlight whatever we want to convert into char inside parentheses, and the last one, char inside parentheses, we highlight this. Alright, let's compile and run. Alright, so for the first example we use A, and you can see it actually worked. Alright, now if we still have some doubts about how conversion works, I'm not going to make a completely separate video about this. It's actually pretty simple. You actually have the data types that I've shown you. So those would be int, bool, float, double, character. Whenever we want to convert anything into one of these, we just type the name of the data type, and whatever we want to convert, we will put it inside the parentheses. Let's comment this. So let's say we want to convert the character x into int. We actually just type int and whatever we want to convert inside parentheses. So this would give us a code. I'm not sure what code exactly, but it should be somewhere in the range of 70, 80 or something. Alright, so the code is 88. Alright, that is actually all for today. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.